What's up, y'all? Good
Happy
morning.
Coffee and Connection Day. Superheroes are back, even though it's not even close to my birthday today.
Do you guys see who's on his cup? For those of you that haven't seen it yet.
Same as last time. I'll show you this side. I didn't really show this side. Batman and the Flash are on there too. You can look all the way around.
Sweet cup.
It is.
Yeah.
And this morning, I don't have any chocolate milk. They were out of it at the store when we went this week, but they had some eggnog. So I put eggnog in my coffee, and oh my gosh, is this going to be a magnificent holiday season? It is so good.
How much do you have left?
Oh, I don't have any eggnog left.
And we bought it on Sunday.
I used it all up. Well, Paige drank a little bit of it.
She barely drank any.
Barely drink any. I know, it's so good. But yeah, so just a little holiday treat if you're like me and not really in love with the coffee, but you want to hang out with coffee people because they're kind of awesome. Then I recommend the eggnog going on in there.
So I bet you guys are curious why we're outside today.
It's a good bet.
Why are we outside today?
Well, Paige is homesick from school today. She woke up in the night not feeling so well, so she's asleep in our normal Coffee and Connection area. So we came out here. Plus, we got these beautiful lights, and it's about to rain here, so it's dark even though it's daytime.
So dark.
Yeah, the lake looks awesome. I really like the way the lake looks when it's about to get stormy. So it may require a walk once it starts raining hard.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's such a bummer when you don't feel good. Poor Paige. She was feeling fine, and today she had her last day for tryouts and had a Halloween party at her house, at her mom's house. And then probably about 4 o'clock, she came in and she was like,
not doing well.
"Oh, I'm not feeling well."
Yeah. So any prayers for her? We'll take them.
Yes.
I'm sure she'll bounce back by tomorrow. But
So, do you guys have any plans for Halloween? Today is Halloween.
oh yeah, happy Halloween.
Yeah.
Man, it doesn't even feel like that right now. Just because it's the first thing in the morning. Halloween doesn't really seem like a morning sort
No,
of
it doesn't.
event.
We should have dressed up.
We really should have. Well, here. Now I'm dressed as Whitney, and Whitney's dressed as Jake.
No, that would be funny though. I actually really like Halloween, and Jake doesn't seem to be into the Halloween spirit. But
Sorry.
the thing that I like about Halloween is you get to play a character that you don't get to play in real life. So I always like seeing what character people choose and the creativity that comes from Halloween, the different costumes. I saw my Aunt Liz and Uncle Jim, who live in California. They dressed up as Lucy. Hey, Lucy?
Yeah, Lucille Ball.
Yeah. And they looked so cute. Looked like they were gonna, no matter where they were gonna go, they were gonna have a lot of fun. So, I was like, those are the kind of costumes that I really like.
Yeah, and I'm just not enough of I don't have a strong enough why to do the planning in advance. Like all the, like, hey, what are we gonna be? I'm always like, I don't know. I'm not really opposed to it, but I just, it's one of those things where you kind of have to commit early, I think, to have the costume, and I'm not very good at committing. I'll try it. Now that I know that it means more to, I didn't know that Whitney was such a Halloween person. I'll do better next year, I promise. But we do have fun plans for tonight for Halloween.
Yeah? What are we gonna do?
We're going over to, there's a place that gives out food on Wednesday nights, shopping carts full of food. So this is why it's gonna be extra fun. So it's Halloween, it's gonna be pouring rain, and they need volunteers to take these carts of groceries down a steep ramp. For anyone who is in the engineering business and you think that it has to have a 1 to 12 slope for handicap access, no, there was no building code on this ramp. This thing is steep. And so it's gonna be like a slide. Every time it rains, it's super slick. And so it's sort of like a controlled slide down the ramp with the grocery cart, and then we take it out to the people's car and help them load up their trunk and do all that stuff. So I'm actually really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it should be fun.
And people from our Bible study are going to meet us there, and we're going to all do that together, and then go out to dinner. So it's going to be super fun Halloween, just different, I guess, than trick or treat.
Yeah.
still
Good
dress up.
morning, Dad and Gary. What are your guys' plans for Halloween?
Oh, we could dress up like the character that's on that salt container. That girl in the yellow rain clothes
The
with the
kosher
umbrella. Yeah, because then we'll fit in at our, because we're gonna be outside
Just have
in the rain.
umbrellas and
Yeah.
a raincoat. That's an idea.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They're predicting an inch of rain here today, which is no big deal for Texas because that's like the kind of rain they get. But I'm used to Manhattan Beach, where on an annual basis we get like 3 inches, and I'm like, holy cow, an inch in one day.
Yeah. But either way, rain or no rain, actually there's a ton of trick-or-treaters going to the high school to do a trunk or treat. So probably like hundreds of kids that are going to attend this event. So hopefully it doesn't
Rain out. Yeah.
Then the kids will not be able to get their candy.
Hopefully the candy's still good when it's wet. That's really all that matters, right?
Yeah. So what is our topic of conversation today?
That's a great question. So tomorrow's podcast that comes out is part 3 of the series on rewriting your story, the story you tell yourself about you, and sort of how that affects what you believe is possible for you now. And the
Which
options,
has been an awesome series, by the way.
Yeah, it's super fun.
A lot of great feedback.
And that you have a lot of options. You can't rewrite the events of your past, but you definitely can rewrite what they mean, what you think about them, what value you assign to them, and how they affect you now. And so it's been sort of going through the process of going through that. And then for the podcast tomorrow, I actually kind of tapped into Whitney's brain a little bit to find out about that tension that lives in between the story you've been telling yourself and the new story you're writing for yourself, and how do you bridge that gap? It's so hard to switch when you've been telling one story for so long. So how in the world do you go about actually changing, not just writing a new story, but actually trying to live by it? So it's been a fun one to go through, and it resulted in a multiple choice quiz for this morning. So basically what we found as we went through this is that your brain wants to stick with the old story. That's the thing, and you're trying to switch it over into the new story. And so it's got kind of some defense mechanisms that it puts in place. So we listed some common ones on here just to see which one is yours. So when you are trying to make this big change, when you're trying to become someone new, you're trying to live a little bit bigger, we want to know, does your brain tell you, is the one that attacks you, is it A, hey, you don't get to just pretend that all these things didn't happen in your life. You did have these failures. These did happen to you. These things didn't go your way. So don't come out here and pretend like you can just rewrite the story. So that's A. Is that the one that kind of grabs you? Or do you have the yeah but defense, when you start looking at the benefits of maybe some of the struggle you've experienced and start seeing it as your superhero origin story instead of this tale of brokenness? Do you get, yeah, but you're being fake. Like, that's not the real you. The real you is the one that suffered through this stuff and has all of these insecurities and whatever. So soon everyone's going to find out, and all your friends already know. I don't know who you're trying to be, but that's not really who you are. So that's your...
Almost like an imposter syndrome?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. B and C both kind of tie into that imposter syndrome a little bit, but yeah. So choice B is that you can't just like pick this new story and say, now I'm not the old me, I'm the new me. That's you being fake. The old you that you've been practicing is the real you. The new you is a fake.
Got it.
And then choice C is, do you have this the other shoe's gonna drop kind of a defense, like when you start seeing the evidence, like, oh, hey, good things are happening, and I'm actually starting to make improvements, and I'm starting to see the world in a different way, and I can see some of the fruits of this labor. Yeah, it's going well now, but it's not going to last. You had good times before, and it didn't last. So that's like kind of the third. All 3 of those are just ways that we're kind of trying to tell ourselves, our lower brain that just wants us to be comfortable, safe, stay in bed, curled up in a ball, watching TV, is saying, hey, don't try to make these changes. Just stay how you are. So we're kind of curious. You can just type in there A, B, or C, respond on here now whenever you watch this thing, and just let us know which one it is. We're kind of curious to see which one applies.
Which one are you?
No, you have to go first. I just talked a lot.
I would say like what I am right now. What I would.
Well, which one made it hardest for you to change? If you imagine a change you were trying to make from one story, an old story, to a new story, which one of those like offered the most resistance to your change?
Probably A. That you don't just get to pretend that it didn't happen. I think acceptance of the events that happened or the story, and I wouldn't even say acceptance of the story, but realizing that you do get to choose, and part of you getting to choose isn't pretending. But I think for me, my brain would for sure go into a default of, well, then you're pretending. Like if you're not realistic, then you're in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fantasy made me feel like, well, it for sure happened, and I have all the memories, so I can't just pretend that those memories don't exist. But when I realized that this was an opportunity for me to tell a story in a different way, and that the event still happened, then I was able to actually rewrite it and accept it, kind of believe it the same.
Mm.
What about you?
I think it's different in different stories. I would say choice B stands out to me. One story that like jumps into my mind is when I first started teaching. I had taken no education courses whatsoever. I didn't have a credential, and straight up, the first day I started teaching, I had not even graduated from college yet. And so I felt really unqualified when I walked into the classroom. And then the evidence of the way I taught very much supported my story. I did not teach very well that first time. It was only a little 6-week period at the end of the year, right as I was graduating college, just finishing off the year. The philosophy of the school was, hey, start in right now, teach summer school, you'll learn to be a teacher over summer school, and then you'll start for real in the fall. So unfortunately, starting like that, it gave me the story that I wasn't a very good teacher. That I wasn't really qualified. The way I got in, I kind of like, just like snuck through the door. I didn't really go through the proper channels. And so I had a story. I was telling myself that I wasn't a very good teacher. And what's funny about that is that even later on down the road, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, as I was being reviewed or, getting my, re-signing my contract or whatever, very often I would hear from my superiors that, well, you're such a great teacher. You're a really good teacher. I'd be like, how do they know? Like, what even makes them think that? Like, they don't know if I'm a good teacher. They haven't come into my room. I'm like, why does everyone think this? And I really had a hard time changing my story about that. And ultimately I did. Ultimately I decided that the way I got into teaching didn't define who I was as a teacher or the work I put in after that point to improve myself as a teacher. And so I got to change it, but I definitely could see that. Like, I really felt like a fake. Holy cow, to walk into a classroom, have the Pledge of Allegiance be over, and those kids look at you, and they're like, you're our teacher. And I'm saying, hey, I'm your teacher. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am not a teacher. Like, all that I was thinking of that completely felt like a fake.
And what would make you feel like you were a teacher?
Well, over time, I just had the opportunity to retell the story because I got to just retell it.
But was it like evidence, like after time?
Yes and no. Really, it was just more. It was undoing the evidence that the way I snuck in meant that I was, that now I was locked into this box of not a qualified teacher. Even after I had credentials and I had been to, all these professional development things, I had done all this research on my own. I had years of classes that went well. I was mentoring other teachers, but I always had this story about the way I started. That it wasn't the proper procedure.
Yeah, and it's funny how sneaky those stories start. Like, for me, it wasn't like I granted myself permission to retelling that story, but until I realized that story wasn't serving me, I was like, oh, when did this story even start? Why did I ever start thinking this story? Because it wasn't helpful. But it's like our brain doesn't filter, oh, that story isn't going to serve you, so don't believe that story. It doesn't work that way.
I always like the logic of it. That's like, so if there's if you could focus on the good things that came from it, you know, the story kind of like we were talking about last week, if you could focus on the gifts that you gained from your story, you know, from the good time, would you go back and change? Would you skip the struggle if it meant that you lost what you gained?
Right.
Just an interesting question to think about. Is that, I don't know, is that Garth Brooks song? I don't know my country music that well, but he says I could have missed the pain, but then I'd have to miss the dance.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so you have no idea. so that kind of thing, that kind of concept, because that starts to chip away at this idea. The answer might be no. It might be like, heck no. The stuff I went through was brutal compared to the last. Like, yes, I would skip that stuff. You know, I wouldn't go through it. But then you start to realize, that's not even an option to begin with. You can't go back and skip it. And so you might as well, you know, really let your mind dive into this idea of, wow, what did I get? What did I gain? How did these things offer me some unique abilities? And I got to think that a lot, even about teaching. That I was like, no, I didn't have all of that stuff. So the teaching methods that I used at the beginning were specifically designed to serve the students in my classroom. And I thought, wow, what a gift that I got to do that with, from a clean slate, no knowledge of how this goes, only every day walking in, looking at these students and saying, how can I serve them best today? It formed a teaching philosophy.
Yeah, it makes me think of the book from Byron Katie, Loving What Is. And she basically talks about that. Which I fell in love with that book, because she's like, exactly what Jake said, you can't change your past. So it is reality. So why not love reality? Like, find a way to love it. I was like, oh yes, I like that. I can get on board with that.
Yeah, and it lets you free of all these ideas like, well, if I continue hating it, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Well,
Right.
Well, what? You know, it's just such a strange concept that we just take on as such a default, I guess. I like the book too, but I only liked it from Whitney because I have never read this book, but I've heard a lot about it from.
Jake doesn't read books.
No, I don't. Well, kind of.
He listens to
I'm
them,
becoming someone who reads books. I have now
nice.
read 2.
Two?
Yeah. Yeah, I read The
first
Golden
one.
Ratio.
Oh, okay, right.
And I just finished Christian Atheist. Paige and I read it together. And in a few months, I will have read the Bible.
That's right.
How's
That's
that
a
for
big
a book?
book.
That one's thick.
Yeah.
I must be super smart.
Well, we're probably going to cut this one a little bit short because we have some things to get started with. However, in this month of November, inspired by Brooke Moore, we are going to, Jake, Paige, and I are going to do No TV, No Movies November.
Digital detox.
Yes.
Minus
so
all of the digital we do for our work.
that means on the weekends, we are going to be thinking of creative ideas to do instead of watching TV. And we don't really watch that much TV, but it probably amounts to like maybe a total of 8 hours. I mean, if that's
In the week.
3 movies or something.
In the week, not in the day.
Right, throughout the week. And that's probably like the maximum amount. However, that's now 8-ish hours that we're going to have to think creatively of things to do. So if you're interested in joining us, let us know, because that we can share ideas. But then I think it would be cool for Coffee and Connection if we did something a little different for the month of November. So maybe like specific questions that you guys send in, or a theme or topic every day. Totally thinking off the
I haven't read any of this. I'm hearing it right with you guys right now.
So when you watch this later today,
this is how we run things here.
when you watch this later today, and if you think of anything that would be fun or inspiring or engaging, more engaging, that you would want to do for the month of November, then please share those ideas, because that would be fun.
It would be fun.
All right, any other announcements?
Well, don't forget to get your spot for that trip to El Salvador. It's been super exciting to have all the pieces fall into place, and we're really excited to go. And we've got people signed up, and so it's 100%. You know, everything's moving forward, and so it's just a matter if you can grab one of the spots before they before they are gone. We would love for you to do that, and it actually only requires a deposit to get your spot. You don't even have to pay all the money up front. You still get the discount for early sign up just by having the deposit. And other than that,
That's it.
I think that's all we got going on.
You guys have a fabulous day today.
See ya.
See you soon.